A city whose government has no respect for human rights, a city whose human trafficking tops the record of the world. We heard the argument that this is not a relationship between two government bodies, it's only between the people of the two cities. We do not agree so, because yet this has to be approved by both the councils. Yet the people of CádN THIA has no right for assembly, no freedom of speech. And so how can they, the residents of CádN THIA, enter into a relationship with Riverside? Later on, the council will hear the testimonies from many Vietnamese Americans of Riverside and elsewhere that this relationship with CádN THIA has opened the wound, and to some, the illness caused by that brutal government many years ago certainly has re-intensified. With regard to human trafficking, I have submitted to you earlier a recent human trafficking violation in Vietnam, and one of such tragic audio is a story of a young woman who was a victim of forced modern-day slavery, and as it was reported in the Houston press. There are also widespread oppression and imprisonment of anyone who dare to speak out in defense of the poor peasant or the working class. Anyone who would criticize the government. One of such recent abuse is the sad story of a 17-year-old and a beautiful student in Saigon, ĐIธ์Khanh, whose kindness and courage get her into trouble with the brutal government. She was beaten and imprisoned since 2010. Her only crime is helping the poor peasant whose lands were stolen to file complaint with the government. Distinguished council members, how many more people have to stand before you, share their story of how they lost their loved ones to human rights abuses before you will consider ending the relationship with CádN THIA? How many more lives have to cut short, their dreams unfulfilled, and families destroyed before you take action? And how many more Vietnamese Americans residents in Riverside, some of which you will hear testimony tonight, have to suffer before they take action?
KIểN is the next speaker, followed by Jean-Baptiste. You can see up there, just for the countdown, right? So the yellow light comes on, you have 1 minute, and you should be able to see it.
Thank you.
All right, KIểN.
Good evening, Mayor and Council Member of the great city of Riverside. My name is KIểN. I'm the ambassador to the Vietnamese community for the city of Santa Ana. I believe our city have sent to you a letter from the city of Santa Ana to express our opposition to the recently established city relationship with the city of Santa Ana. Also, I'm here to express appreciation for your cooperation and the support of recent protest, and take this to simply respectful exercise our First Amendment last Thursday. Many of you may wondering why Vietnamese Americans are so strongly opposed to sister city relationship with the city in Vietnam. That's simple, because we do not trust Communist government of Vietnam. Many of us were victim of the communists, and many of us have very bad experience with the government of Vietnam. And that's the reason why we are here today. That's the reason why we are here in this country, because we are escaping from communists. We do not, no freedom, no democracy, and continuing abuses of human rights violation and religious abuses. By extending sister city relationship with the government of CádN THIA, it means the city of Riverside accepting human rights violation and religious abuses by the communist government of Vietnam, and also is honor the contribution and sacrifices of more than 58,000 American soldiers and over 1 million members of the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces, its allied armed forces, and also their family. who have sacrificed to protect the freedom and democracy of South Vietnam. I don't think most of you do not know very well about the communists of Vietnam. But again, that meant most of you wonder why we are opposing a bill, because it's just simple. We do not trust the communists, and still Vietnam have human rights and the freedom and the basic right have been respected. I don't think we should have any relationship with Vietnam. We want you to send a message to the government of Vietnam that if they are continuing to violate the human right of the people of Vietnam and deny the basic right, we will not establish citizenship with them. In closing, I would like to quote our President of Vietnam, President Nguyễn Văn Thiệu. Do not believe the communists said what they said. Let's pay close attention to what they are doing. We strongly believe that the sister city relationship would cause more harm to the city and resident of Riverside. Thank you so much.
John Fisher next.
First of all, good evening, sir. All the council members, especially the Mayor Nelly, and the rest of attorneys up there. On behalf of the Vietnam veterans, I am a Vietnam veteran. During the war in Vietnam, I was representing McPhee Division J2. We fight against the communists. Also, I'd like to say thanks to the veteran of Vietnam, those are sitting here, and also a veteran mayor, to know that we are the veteran. We love the freedom to protect what our ancestors mentioned, freedom. I'm lucky, 35 years ago, I have a letter from President Reagan in April. Please allow me to read, and up to you to decide what the President advised. Mr. Trương Quang Trí, please extend my greeting and the best wishes to the member and the guests of Istanbul to commemorate the tragic downfall of the Republic of Vietnam. There's some paragraph I do not need to read, but I read the two last paragraph from the President Reagan that you as veterans and you as a council in Riverside to decide whether you accepted the communists as your colleagues or not. We may not be able in the near future to undo the damage that has been done. But we can all learn from the past and rededicate ourselves to the cause of freedom and the self-determination for the Vietnamese people and other nations suffering under the communism tyranny. As long as we maintain our strength and our vision of the future free tyrannies, we will ultimately be victorious. It's up to you and all of us to decide. To do all our power to restore freedom in Southeast Asia and the part of the vote divided. Signed, Ronald Reagan. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Grace Lee. Jack Soto, followed by Grace Liu.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, I spent 30 years in the United States Marine Corps. 2 tours in Vietnam, 65 and 69. This afternoon I returned from Camp Pendleton at the 1st Marine Division headquarters. We had a gathering of folks from my old regiment, the 7th Marine Regiment. We've got doings coming up later on in the year, and we are preparing for those doings. At the conclusion of the meeting, the get-together. We talked about numerous items, things of interest. You know what that interest was paramount of our concern and our topics? It was the Vietnamese people, the Vietnamese soldiers, the Arvins, in connection with the Korean, the Rots, who were the devastating object against the Viet Cong. We talked about how they were professional, how they were unlimited, how they were resourceful. And here behind me sits those products of those Arvins. Myself, Mr. Ruben Rosso are here in their support. Why? Because they are Americans who've proven themselves to be Americans and to fight along us to defeat the communists. Not only the communists and all the other worse than bad elements of society. They were paid a disservice a year ago. Their honor was stripped from them by a majority vote from this council chamber. Allow me to ask you to rescind that vote, to consider the fact that these are Americans who came here not to subculture, but to assimilate, because they are now real Americans, and give them back their lost honor and rescind that vote. Semper Fi, God bless you, God bless them, and
Next move, followed by John King.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Long Pham. I'm a resident of Newport Beach, California. I am a retired engineer and also a retired Orange County Board of Education trustee. I'm here this evening first to thank you for listening for the issue that we are concerning about. I know that the city of Riverside had been looking into sister relationship with CadzN THIA for a long time, and in reading the most recent new release on January 29th, it appears that the city believed that by signing up with the sister relationship with CadzN THIA, we only share the issue of interest between people to people. As an engineer myself, I'm looking at two issues. Number one, compatibility, and number two, merit. Let's talk about compatibility. The city of Riverside, the city council, each members of the city council is a truly representative of the people of Riverside. But if you are talking to the council member from CadzN THIA, they are not representative of the people in CadzN THIA, because the law in Vietnam, in order to be a candidate, they have to be approved by the Communist Party. Yes. Without the approval, people cannot vote for them. So we don't have a compatibility here. Well, let's move on to the number two issue. Let's talk about merit. The city of Riverside, when we tie up with the sister city relationship with CadzN THIA, it's going to give the people the perception that you are condoning all of the bad things that caused by the government of Vietnam. I'm just spelling out a few of the bad things. Number one, human trafficking. Number two, religious oppression. Number three, human rights violation. If you are ever asking yourself, how come so many Vietnamese Americans oppose the communists? If you are ever asking yourself a question, just ask yourself one question. If some people rape your daughter and they sold your daughter to be sex slave in the other country. If that's the government, the Vietnamese government is doing that. Okay, if they kill your parents simply because your parent is a member of the middle class in the society, okay, will you be friends with them? Thank you very much.
ôngTrương, followed by Dr.